I got you.
You got me? Okay, you got your pen. Good. So, I am Superior Court Judge Lora Cubbage. I am based out of Greensboro. And based out of Greensboro simply means that that's where I get my votes from. I have had the opportunity to serve up here in Rowan County for a number of months. When we are assigned to other counties, we're there for 6 months. So I can't remember whether it was the first of last year or the first of the year before that I served in Rowan County, so I'm very familiar with the landscape up here. I am running for the North Carolina Supreme Court for the seat that Justice Mike Morgan has vacated. And as you all are probably well aware, I do have a primary. Why am I running against another Democratic opponent? And I'll tell you why. Quite simply, it's because I think I'm the only candidate in this race that can win, not just in the primary, but also in the general. Why is that? Because I am the only candidate that has the experience. I am the only candidate. I've been practicing law for 17 years, almost 18 years. The first of that, part of that, I was a district attorney in Greensboro. Then I went to Raleigh and became an assistant attorney general. Then I ran for the district court bench seat and I was successful. Then I ran for the Superior Court seat and I was successful. Why does that matter, Laura, to the Supreme Court? Because 90% of the cases, I know we're talking about voting rights. Absolutely important, absolutely important. But you need to know that 90% of those cases that the Supreme Court reviews comes from the trial court bench, comes from the district court, and comes from the Superior Court. And the Supreme Court does not review records or cases for the facts of the case. They review the record of the trial court judge. I am the only candidate in this race, even when I get to the general, that has ever been a trial court judge, that has ever sat on the trial courts, that has ever litigated or presided over every single case that the Supreme Court is going to review. I'm the only one that's ever created that very record that the Supreme Court is going to review. I've also sat on your voting rights and your redistricting cases. How did I do that? The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has to appoint Superior Court judges to sit on those cases. I've had the opportunity to sit on several of those cases, a couple for redistricting over the last 5 years, and even more for the voting rights over the last 5 years. I've also had an opportunity to sit on what we call in North Carolina, preside over what we call 2.1 complex business cases. That means for those of you that have businesses or have family members that have businesses or even know large businesses, those cases, when they come to court, they have to have a judge or 3 judges that the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court appoints to hear those cases. You don't just get to hear those cases. Your appointment is not random. Your appointment is based on your experience and your knowledge and how the Chief Justice feels like that you can, bring that to that particular case, that you will know exactly what you're doing. I have sit on those cases. Another thing that I'm going to talk to you about, this is not a black and white election to me. However, I am going to tell you that I am going to emphasize diversity matters on that court. We've heard our governor in newspaper articles say he believes that the courts need to be more diverse. Why he didn't put me in the appointment because I was up, I don't know. However, I marked that box too. Why does that matter? Because, folks, every single election that we come to, there is yet another right that has been stripped. Now we're talking about, does the Leandro case still stand for our students in public schools having a right to a basic education? Now we're talking about, do we as women in this room get to have the choice of what happens to our healthcare concerns, from what we're going to take to the common cold to what we're going to do should we find ourselves pregnant? And that's just the real of it. We also have these voting issues. Are we going to be allowed to vote? Who's going to be allowed to vote? Who's going to have access to those polls? I will tell you that over the last 5 months, we fought tooth and nail in Greensboro to get North Carolina A&T State University as an early voting site. You all know the history. Our school was one large voting population. Then they split us down the middle. Then they had the kids where they couldn't get to their precinct. Their voting precincts were so far that those that didn't have cars couldn't even get there. And now we have finally got it so that the A&T is an early voting site. So now it's just a matter of getting the kids motivated to get up out the bed and walk across campus. Now, believe it or not, that's a task. That's a task. I also teach at A&T as an adjunct, so I can tell you that's a task. I can tell you that what I had to do to get them, had to convince them. I show up at the elections board, they don't care. They need to know that you care about whether you're going to be able to vote, about whether you're gonna be able to get that transportation. They showed up and showed out because a lot of us professors said, you need to go, and they went in droves. So yes, now A&T is a early voting site, and I submit to you that I believe that if we all work together, we can get that on every college campus, not just an HBCU, but every college campus across the state. I submit to you that these rights that are getting stripped, I am standing up here and I'm as real can be. Again, this is not a black and white race to me, but you all know and you all tell me who gets affected when these rights get stripped the most. Anybody, somebody. Black minority, black and brown people, my community. Why does this affect me so much? Because it's my community. I'm just gonna be real with you, it's my community. It was my job, if you all might have missed it, on page 600 or 363, I think, in that big appropriations bill that just passed called the budget, they wanted to take my seat. My seat. Why take my seat yet turn around and create another one? They wanted to take another black judge's seat in Winston, yet they just created a seat in Winston for a Republican to win it, and he did win it. And so I'm not just a candidate standing up here, I'm a stakeholder. Because when my community gets affected the most, it is time for them to know that there is somebody that wants to go down to Raleigh and fight for them who can relate, who's there. I'm not just in the black community when I'm asking them to vote. I'm in the black community every single day of my life. I live there. I live there. So I know how our kids are getting affected. I know that it's my granddaughter that may not get to vote if this keeps going the way it is. She may not even get to dream of being in a black robe that she sees her CC in and is so proud of. She may not be able to have, she's in public education. I'm a product of public schools. She may not get the right to have that basic quality education if we keep going the way we're going. She may not be able to have the choice of what she's going to do. And this fight is not about pro-life or pro-choice. That's what we're calling it, Democrats. But this is not the fight. It's the fight about pro-rights. Pro-rights. Every single right that we have. When it comes to us women, it's not just about having a baby or not having a baby. It's about everything that goes in between. If it takes 9 months, gentlemen, believe me, and if you have someone that you've had a baby with, you know, every single day of that 9 months, it is an issue. It is a struggle. It is a mental thing. If you've been in a situation, and I'll just be frank with you, because when I go through the general, when I get through primary, I promise you that Republicans are gonna look it up and figure it out, find it out. So I'm gonna tell you up front, I've been that person that had to have an abortion. I've been that girl. I've been that young girl who had something happen to her, a family secret, and many of you know about that nobody wants to talk about until grandma gets sick and going to her grave and sitting on that front porch, and then she tells it. And everybody, right? We don't know, right? Then everybody is shocked to hear that this is what happened. But that was painful. That was trauma. That was shame. That was guilt. That was, could I have stopped it? Could I have done something about it? And that is the right to privacy. Not just about pro-choice or pro-life. That is my right to privacy. To have been able to make that decision with my mom and dad and not have anybody else in the world judge me for it, not have anybody else in the world try to tell me that I can't do this or that, to tell me that I had to live with that pain and that trauma every single day of my life. That's what the abortion rights is about. And that's what we as Democrats need to understand and make sure that the world knows. We're not talking about just pro-choice. I mean, probably most of us have children and we love them. So we know children are a blessing. We know children are a blessing, but we also know as women, and we're educating you men, that pregnancy and the decision to carry or not to carry is so much more than just about having a baby or not having a baby. I understand and I value these rights. I've been through it. I lived through it. As a black woman, I lived through it. As a Black woman, I lived through what the right to vote means. I would not be standing here without that right. As a Black woman who's a product of public education, I am the example that obviously the Republicans need to see. Because sometimes, you know, you don't put value if you don't see the outcome. If you can't see what it will produce, you don't think it's necessary. Why is it necessary? Because I'm necessary. I'm necessary. And so the right to vote is necessary. The right to a basic public good education is necessary. And the right to choose my own healthcare needs, including reproductive healthcare, is absolutely necessary. And that is why I submit to you, I am not just running around the state as a candidate. I'm running around the state as a stakeholder in this fight. And sometimes when the fight comes to your family, you all know, if the fight's outside the house, you'll look at it. But when the fight gets inside the house, you're ready to roll up your sleeves and say, this is my fight, I got this. So I'm asking you to join me in the I got this. I call it, sister, I'm gonna give you something to adopt. Don't be scared to ask for money because they want you to fight for them. So if they want you to fight for them, they gotta dig in their pockets and put it where it hurts. So I say there's a 3-step process to getting Judge Cubbage to the bench. Donate, share, and vote. If it hurts you to donate, how much more is it gonna hurt you if the Republicans continue to have the Supreme Court with nobody up there that can represent your interests individually and collectively? If for some reason you cannot donate, of course, that's fine. But what you can do is share. You absolutely can share my name. My postcards are on that table. You can pass them out to everybody that you know. And what you absolutely can and must do is go in the booth and vote on March the 5th. We absolutely have to vote, and we have to get everybody else to the polls. I'm gonna ask you to take that vote one step further and check my name. You'll see the whole government name on that ballot, Lora Cubbage. I'm gonna ask you to check it and make sure that when you send someone to the Supreme Court, you know she's interested, you know she's got a stake in this fight, you know she's qualified, you know she's diverse, and you now know what my values are. And you know that I share the same values that you share. And I thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, for the time.